Hi, I'm Kevin Jensen. I'm a family law and divorce attorney in Mesa, Arizona. One thing that comes up often in divorce cases especially is, what do you do with a house that you and your spouse bought during the marriage? Now, Arizona is a community property state, so any house or any other property for that matter that you acquired during the term of the marriage is going to be considered community property. Now, since you're getting divorced, of course, both of you are not going to stay in the house. Inevitably, one party or the other ends up with the house. Who that is often becomes the decision of the parties, but sometimes the decision of the court. But houses present some unique and interesting problems in divorces. Not just who gets to stay in the house, but what do we do about a house that has a mortgage on it? Most people, when they get a mortgage on a home, when they're married, have both spouses put on the mortgage. When you get divorced and one party's staying in the house and the other party's moving, that presents a problem, because the party who's moving out, not staying in the house, often wants their name taken off of that mortgage. They don't want to be legally responsible for it anymore. After all, if the spouse who is staying in the house gets to keep the house, they should have all the responsibility for the mortgage as well. And that makes sense. That's the way it should be. The problem often that arises is that there's not enough equity in the house to refinance it out of the other spouse's name into just one spouse's name. And so what do you do in a circumstance where that arises? There's really only a few things that can be done with a house in a divorce. One is you sell it. That's not an uncommon way of dealing with houses. The parties just say, we're going to sell the house. If there happens to be any money left over after the sale of the house, we'll divide it and we'll both go our separate ways. Option two is one spouse stays, the other spouse goes, but the spouse who keeps the house has to go and refinance it into his or her own name. Now, what I often do in cases like this is we put language in any agreement giving that spouse a certain amount of time to get that refinance done. And that's really important, because the sooner your name gets off of that mortgage, the sooner you're going to be able to go on, maybe buy another house of your own, make other purchases, etc. Until your name's off that loan, your credit's going to always be affected by whether or not your ex is paying that mortgage on a monthly basis. And every once in a while, we have a case where the ex doesn't pay the mortgage, and that creates a whole different set of problems, which I'll talk about in just a minute. But typically, if the parties don't sell the house, one of the parties goes and tries to refinance the house. And if they're able to do that, great. Problem solved. Now he or she is the only one responsible for the mortgage, and you can go on with your life. It's really important, though, to have a deadline by which that is supposed to take place. For example, I often see parties who try to do these things on their own without the advice of an attorney, in the spirit of let's save some money and let's not fight. They go and they put together an agreement on their own, but they leave out really key details that a good attorney who deals with these situations wouldn't leave out. And I've seen cases, for example, where there's no deadline. Now, why is that a big deal? Well, if you don't have a deadline for the spouse who's staying in the house to refinance it, it could be years. And there's no legal obligation for them to do it within any specific time. So I always make sure that there's a specific deadline, usually 6 months to a year. That's a reasonable amount of time to get a refinance done. But if they're not able to refinance the house within 6 months to a year, then usually we have something happen. Either the house reverts back to my client, the party who left the house, or we just sell it. Otherwise, you're going to be in a situation where your ex could impact your credit for years to come. Now, what do you do if you have that situation where your ex is staying in the house, they don't pay the mortgage, and you're getting calls from the mortgage company? Well, the problem is, until your name gets off that loan, you're going to get those calls every single time your ex-spouse doesn't pay the mortgage. Why is that? After all, didn't the judge order that your ex is responsible for the mortgage, not you? Of course, that's what the court orders say. The problem is that creditors, including mortgage companies, aren't required to follow what the court orders say. All they know is that they have a contract with you and your ex saying that you'll both be responsible for the mortgage. And now you've got an ex who's not paying the mortgage and is screwing up your credit and making your life miserable. So what do you do in that circumstance? Well, in that circumstance, really you don't have a whole lot of choice other than to go back to court and ask the judge to enforce the prior orders. And in a lot of cases, what that means is that the judge is going to force the sale of the house. Well, what do you do if you've paid the mortgage in the spirit of trying to save your credit, right? Your ex isn't paying it. You don't want your credit to go down the tubes. What do? The only thing you can do to save your own credit is to pay that mortgage until you can get the judge to order something new. In that circumstance, you can ask the family court judge to order your ex to pay you. And that's the remedy. It's a very complicated situation, but a lot of times the problem can be solved by drafting really good settlement documents at the time of the divorce. Like I said, a lot of people try to do this on their own. They want to save a few bucks. But what ends up happening is they come back to the attorneys anyway to sort of bail them out of a bad situation. So at the law offices Kevin Jensen, we offer a free 30-minute consultation. Come in and sit down with us if you're going through a situation like this, either at the time of a divorce or even if you're in a situation where you're already divorced but you're fighting over a house afterwards. Come in and sit down with us. Let us talk to you about the situation. We've handled many, many cases involving parties fighting over houses and the proceeds of houses and mortgages on houses. We know how to help you in this circumstance, and we know how to go fight for your rights. So give us a call, come on in and sit down, and we'll talk to you about your situation. Thanks.